Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we have entered day one of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And before we have a look at the tactical map in terms of what's going on the battlefield, I wanted to talk about is the most significant weapon system that the Ukrainian military is deploying against Russian forces. What is the most effective weapon system that the Ukrainians are using currently? And some people would say, well, it's quite possibly the Javelin, or it could be the Brimstone, which we know now has been deployed. Maybe it is the HIMARS. Very, very effective system in terms of hitting long-distance targets deep in the rear of the Russian area of operations. But I'm going to tell you, it's none of those systems. Now, those systems assist with the operational capacity of the weapon system I'm going to tell you about. But this weapon system than any of those systems in terms of total net value. And the system I'm talking about is worth about $60 billion. That is roughly the same size as the entire Russian defense budget. And what is that system? That system is the U.S. intelligence agencies. And I'm just going to go down a list of intelligence agencies that are directly assisting the Ukrainian military in its ability to what we call sense and then shoot. Obviously, if you can't sense and identify targets quickly and accurately, no matter what kind of weapon system you have, you simply won't be able to hit those targets, especially with some of these more advanced systems such as the HIMARS that is now being deployed and I have to say quite possibly under semi-direct control of U.S. forces. And so we'll start off obviously within that $60 billion. You have the U.S. CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. You have the Defense Intelligence Agency. You have the National Security Agency. But most importantly, there's two agencies that are really giving the Ukrainians a edge over the Russian forces in terms of its ability to see what's happening on the ground via the use of remote sensing systems. And that is the National Reconnaissance Office and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So again, you're looking at a budget with these agencies, again, $60 billion. That exceeds the defense budgets of most European militaries and obviously the Russian military itself. So as we see targets being hit deep in the Russian rear area by allegedly, quite possibly, the HIMARS systems, but the Ukrainians have capabilities on their own that they inherited from the Soviet Union, that they've also developed on their own, that have the ability to hit targets very precisely. And they would use those systems in conjunction with this intelligence information, this real-time feed of intelligence information that is being handed over to Ukrainian forces. In all likelihood, there is near real-time communication between U.S. Very high-ranking U.S. personnel and the Ukrainian general staff. I'd imagine that the United States, NATO, are active partners in the ongoing war effort that we're seeing between Russia and Ukraine right now in terms of assisting Ukrainian forces. But yes, it is not an actual individual system, weapon system per se, but it is the systems that whether it's signals intelligence, we have heard recently about the possibility that a few senior members of the Russian 106 Guards Airborne Division were hit by long-range Ukrainian systems, and unfortunately for the Russians, in all probability, the United States was using some advanced signals intelligence along with synthetic aperture radars floating around in space, and then obviously other systems as well to locate these Russian command and control nodes, and then going after them. And that is what we're seeing right now on the ground. That is really causing a tremendous amount of headache for Russian forces. It's not just the Ukrainian military that the Russian forces are fighting. They are fighting the full weight of the U.S. Intelligence complex that exists, and just not U.S., but in all probability the United Kingdom and other nation states as well in this ongoing conflict. And that's why, as this conflict continues, we do have that risk of the Russians finally becoming fed up and lashing out. And what that looks like, difficult to say. But the Russians are aware of how the United States controls some of these assets, and would that become a target at some point if things really get out of control? Quite possibly, but we'll have to just wait and see what happens. But again, that gravitational pull and then kind of what you're seeing in terms of world events towards more or less the possibility of a global conflict is continuing. You are starting to continue to see Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, and these groupings of states that are more or less now coalescing together, quite possibly in preparation for something that could take place in the distant or not too distant future in regards to what happens with really kind of the East and semi-East versus the West, and specifically the United States. Now, I would have to say that if this was 1980 or hell, even 1990, I would say the United States is and has been in a very unique position in terms of military power and capability to go against both China and Russia. Now, here in 2022, things have changed a bit here in the United States. And I don't know if the internal body politic of the United States is at a point right now where it could withstand a major global war. I fear that U.S. society has become fractured, and it continues to be fractured and only getting worse. And if there were to be some sort of global conflict, I am unsure how the United States could respond and what the political situation inside of the United States would look like. I've never in my life have seen us meaning the United States, in this sort of position, at least politically, and how divided we are. I think we the United States, would have to go back to the 1860s to see a more divided nation than right now. But back to the ongoing war, not a lot to discuss. The Russians are continuing its deep operational war against Ukrainian forces, while the Ukrainians continue to strike out at areas in the rear of the Russian area of operations. Again, I just kind of talked about that. But right now, the Russians are focusing again this daily press forward towards Bakhmut and Sloviansk, and it would appear that it looks like the intent again is to press this line forward along the main M3 arterial route north to south, and then quite possibly looking to envelop Sloviansk and Kramatorsk from the west as well. We anticipate that we are going to see a fairly significant uptick in Russian operations in the not too distant future. It appears by all the intel that is coming in that there are current and ongoing Russian preparations for a uptick in its attack against Ukrainian forces, and we're just going to have to wait and see how that eventually pans out. We continue to hear about the possibility of Ukrainian operations in the southwest again. I just don't really see that happening. At the same time, we have heard that the Russians are moving up to several additional heavier battalion tactical groups towards Kherson and the general direction of Zaporizhia as well to shore up its defensive capacity in case we see some sort of large-scale Ukrainian counteroffensive. I think, again, it's more or less going to be these extended-range rocket attacks by Ukrainian forces with the United States and North Atlantic Treaty Organization providing direct intel to target Russian forces in this area. And again, that is the key and crucial weapon system that the Ukrainians are really benefiting from right now in this ongoing conflict. But that's it for today. We're going to continue to watch, report, and bring you more content for your consumption. Again, thanks for joining us. More to come very, very soon. Have a good day.